Hello, you beautiful human. This is the 187 Said podcast, and I'm 187. The 187 Said podcast is a podcast for men, those who identify as men, and those that care for them. I'm producing this podcast to normalise the conversation around many of the topics that have an impact on men. If you're finding the episodes helpful, then feel free to support me by sharing the podcast, talking about the subject, or even getting in contact with me and letting me know what subjects I should cover. But also, if you have a lived experience that you think is important to talk about, or something you'd like to share, all of my contact details are in the show notes. So before we start this episode, just wanted to say there was some kind of technical difficulties. Only a few people could get in for this month's check-in. The next check-in will be at 6:07 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on October the 2nd, 2022. So I'm going to put the link in the show notes. It'll be a new link, and I'll see you then. Now, the whole point of the check-in is for you to just come along and to either introduce yourselves, what issues have been pending on you in your life, in regards to you being a man, and probably just have a discussion about, it's a chance for you to just share your views and the things that you think we should talk about. Please bear in mind that even though you are coming from all around the world, this is a UK podcast, so I definitely will have a UK slant on things. Feel free to get in touch. Visit the link that's in the show notes, and it will have all of the social details, all the contacts for social media and so on. But also there's a link for my WhatsApp number, so you can contact me directly by leaving a voice note, or at least sending a message, a WhatsApp message. Other than that, I hope you're well. Just letting you know about the frequency of the podcast. Now, generally, I've been told that the best way to always produce something weekly, that I'm just going to produce it as and when I can, or to produce as many episodes as possible. And should it get to the point where I have enough patrons or enough support, or something miraculous happens so I can do this full time, then it will probably go to once or twice a week. What I'd like you to do, for whatever platform you're on, to subscribe to it, because then it means that if the more people subscribe, the more people get to hear it. And if you have a chance, whatever platform you're on, please just do leave a comment. If you give me a 5-star rating, it is always really important. You can give me 5 stars and complain, 5 stars and praise. I'm making this podcast because I think the issues affecting men are really important for us to discuss. And I've met so many men that really don't know what they can do when particular issues come up. This episode is about child contact. Okay, so let's get this episode started. The title of this episode is Your Ex Has Stopped You Seeing Your Kids. Getting your head in the right place. It's very important to come to terms or get to grips with the fact that even though you are a family, the shape of your family has changed. You might have the belief that when you are married, or when two people have children, you must be together forever. You might have this feeling that that you, in your brain, that you are a failure as a parent because you didn't make the relationship work, and now you don't see your children every day. Life is different from all of you. Your ex-partner, yourself, and the children. You're also going to be surrounded by lots of people who give you lots of advice, such as, she can't do that, she can't do this, she's not allowed to do this, it's not right, blah, blah. Any information that doesn't help you move forward to seeing your children is a waste of time. People are probably just trying to make you feel better by just weighing you down with more information and make you feel more helpless. If the resident parent, the parent with the children, should I say, is stopping you seeing them, that's what you need to concentrate on, not what everybody else thinks is right. Also, I would say that what your legal rights are secondary at this moment. The primary thing is to make sure that you have come to terms with what I want for myself and my children over the next 6 months and the years after that. And I'm not asking you to not feel any sort of emotion, or to get upset, or to cry, or not to cry, or to go down there and sort it out, tell her that she should blah 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 blah. Yeah, certainly not asking you to do that, because it's all going to blow up in your face. Also, unless somebody has a full knowledge and experience of being separated from their family, unless they've gone through the whole process and come to the end and got a good result, don't waste your time listening to them. Just nod your head, accept that's what they're saying, and then move on. It's not useful to you. You need to make sure that the advice you get is either tried and tested or makes plausible sense, and go with your gut instincts. You come to terms with the fact that your family is a different shape, but a family nonetheless. Yes, you're an ex-partner to an ex-partner. Fact is, they are your children. Now we have to look at making sure that you're in the right headspace for this. So, as distressed as you are, I would say, speak to somebody who's not connected to the situation. Get some counselling, but you need to speak to somebody who has an objective and independent view of the situation. And it's important to do that before you even speak to a solicitor. And the reason for that is they have different objectives. They earn money by giving you advice, actioning that advice, and getting the result. But either way, whether you get to see your children or not, your bill will still be 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 and more. You will find that everybody you speak to will want paying. It's very important that when you go into this with as clear a head as possible. It will not be an easy ride. I'm not asking you to be zen before you even start filling out forms and speaking to people, but I would say get your head straight to the point where you are a match fit. You then have to think about the next stage. And I say this with all love in my heart, and also, with the amount of kindness, but you have to be very honest. The fact is it in the children's best interest to have contact with both parents? Can you honestly say it is? Think about it just for a second. And now what I'm going to say is this. There is no such thing as mother's rights or father's rights. Everything they're talking about, that doesn't exist. What you should be fighting for is for your children, your child or children, to spend time with both parents unless it's unsafe to do so. That's the only reason you should not be able to see your children. You might also hear somebody tell you that, the courts are biased towards women and dads never get a say and so on, which is not helpful. I would put my hands up and say, there is bias. There is, it just is, because I've seen it. But once we know the rules and we all know the law, or what's right and what's wrong, once we kind of accept or know that it's bias, we all know what we need to do next. A bit like playing football, and you know that somebody tackles dirty. You don't need to spend time telling them how they should behave in this and they should be nice. You kind of accept that somebody's going to play dirty. And don't try and change it, because that takes you off the focus. Go back to what I was saying before. There's no such thing as father's rights, no such thing as mother's rights. When it comes to family court and contact, it's all about the children's right to spend time with both parents, providing it's safe to do so. And when we're talking about safe, not the fact that they are in mortal danger because somebody's driving around without a seatbelt, or you don't put sun cream on and that sort of thing. We're talking about emotionally and physically safe. So I suggest have a look at the Children's Act. They should be free from emotional and physical trauma. They should not be exploited. They should be cared for, be fed and clothed, and various other things. So you get the idea. So if you're in a position to do that, then great. Then you move to the next round. both parents have is what's called parental responsibility. Now, a mother will automatically get parental responsibility because, she was there at the birth and therefore gave birth to that child. So she 100% has parental responsibility. Now, the father, because he put the baby there, will also have parental responsibility. But in order for that to be proven, should be on a birth certificate. Now, what that actually means is that it's not a 60-40 or 70-30 split or anything like that. It's you have an equal weight of parental responsibility in regards to, in as you would expect a child to be looked after. Right, so you have equal parental responsibility. You have that in the eyes of the law, and you have that in the eyes of the court. Now, going to bias, you kind of have to accept that everybody will say, well, the children are best with mum. You'll have, and I have to be honest, all the institutions that are involved will have the rhetoric, well, children are best with mum. It will just be there. It will definitely be there. When mum says something, it will be taken as truth. More often than not, should I say, not in every single case, but anecdotally, it will be taken as evidence, whereas you say something, so you won't have the same weight. And that's not because of the law. If you think back to one of the episodes where we talked about a learning history and how we were raised and how we look at particular situations, I would say, everybody that we meet has got a learning history, and they will look at situation in a particular way. So they will hear the story when mum says, oh, he's a terrible father, and they will believe it because, as far as they're concerned, men are not supposed to be looking after their children. Only women are, and they're not even looking after them and caring for their children. A woman have to prove that she loves her children. It would just be taken as gospel. You will have to spend time trying to demonstrate, prove to the court that you love your children. It's the dumbest thing ever, but you will have to prove to them that you'd be of benefit for them to have your love. And of course, we're only talking about where your contact's been refused. So if you haven't, then this episode is probably not relevant for you. Safe to say that if the mother stops you seeing your child, you will have to do some work to get through it. Rather than allowing your current internal state to contain things like anger, fear, disgust, worry, whatever dads who are in this position are in, recognize that you're in that situation and just try and turn it down from 10 down to 5. The way you feel is the way you feel. It's about what we do next. So you have parental responsibility. Part of responsibility, as much as it's not necessarily written in law, getting your head straight would be for you to openly accept that you both have parental responsibility. You have to work together. There's different ways of getting it to work. Bearing that in mind, your role is not just to see your children, but is also to support the mother to be in the right condition, so that when the children are with you, that you've got less to worry about, and when they're not with you, you've got less to worry about. And her responsibility is to make sure that you are in the right emotional condition, so that when the children are with you, she doesn't have to worry about them. As much as you hate each other, you both have to find a way. Your responsibility is not only to the child, but also to the other parent. And if you bear that in mind, as volatile as the situation can possibly be, and as dirty as the other side can possibly play, if you keep that in mind, you'll get a lot further than trying to be combative or trying to meet force with force. Just to recap, it's the right of the child in law and in international law to spend time with both parents, providing it's safe to do so. The fact that you both don't get on, whatever caused the relationship ending, the fact is the children exist and you both have an equal responsibility to make sure that the other is able to care for the child when the child is in their care. End of. The next thing I want to talk about is your journey through what will be emotionally exhausting. There'll be occasions where your character, who you are as a person, will be looked at under a microscope. You'll be criticised. You'd have to prove the most inane things. You'll have to deal with accusations that are partly true or wholly untrue. You will have to deal with anything that the mother will feel that she needs to say in order to stop you having contact. And I'm trying to work out a way to say this, that if you've created an unwelcome environment when you're together, you probably have an easier task of navigating this, because you'll know the reasons why your ex-partner has decided to stop you seeing the children. If you put your hand on your heart, be honest, that the things that their partner will say or accuse you of, and you know them to be true, doesn't mean that you don't get to see your children though. You'll just have to do it a different way, or kind of accept that you might have to do some work to make sure that people can guarantee that your children are going to be safe physically and psychologically when they're with you. If you can't do that, it's a long road, but it doesn't have to end on the fact that you never see your children again, or that somebody else will be the arbiter of whether or not you're good or bad. You can prove to other people who be quite objective and probably fueled by an evidence-based approach rather than the fears and worries of another individual, whose fears and worries need to be acknowledged and accepted. You're also going to have to do some work, show your ex-partner that it's going to be safe, and it may take you a very long time to do it. The more difficult thing is that if you've been the most reasonable partner and you are in a situation where your relationship has just ended and your ex-partner has decided, actually, I don't want you to be with the children anymore, whatever the thing is, your ex-partner is more than likely, in order to prevent you seeing your children again, especially if you have a fantastic relationship with the children, if you have been the best parent possible, your ex-partner is more than likely to come out with some very outlandish or very difficult things for you to manage. Say things or create a narrative that you are the monster that should not be around children. And what I'm asking you to do is to just accept that if the relationship's ended and the person's refused contact and starts creating a narrative, it's not for you to disprove it, it's not for you to correct what she's saying, the way that she views the world or whatever she's decided to do. You're going to have to accept it and move on to the things that make sense. Let's say a narrative is created that dictates that you are not a positive force in the children's life and therefore shouldn't see them, then you have to find a way to kind of accept it and answer it in three ways. One, to deny it completely. Two, if there's an ounce of truth, to add context to it. Or thirdly, to accept it, but also talk about the work that you've done and what the future holds for you. So all is not lost. So this episode is all just about getting your head straight. Whatever your emotions are, make sure that you try and control them, turn them down a bit so that your actions are collaborative, supportive, and with kindness. If you can't do any of those three, don't do it at all, or delay your action and find a way. Let's end this episode. So your ex has stopped you seeing your kids, and this is the end of Get Your Head Right. Thank you. Hopefully that's of use. Feel free to, again, send me your comments, your suggestions. If you completely disagree, then talk to me about it. Hopefully I'll see you at the next check-in at 6:07 Greenwich Mean Time on the first Sunday in October. Thank you for listening to this episode, and wherever you listen to this podcast, please subscribe, like, or leave a comment.